Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Energize Your Online Business podcast. Hey there, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, let's talk about staffing today and a very specific part of it. Once you identify that you have a role you need to fill, if you are like me, and I say listening public, if you are like me and also like Kate, once you identify a role that you need to fill, your immediate next thought is,
it's too late.
Oh, God.
But that too, yeah.
It's too late. Yes. We need them now. We need them yesterday.
Yeah.
And then also you think of what a slog it's going to be to have to find those people, which, yeah, no matter what, it's going to be a slog. But the things that we're going to talk about today are going to help decrease the slogginess.
Ease the slog.
Ease the slog. Hashtag ease the slog of that process. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's such a necessary thing too, because I think the other thing that goes along with it of like, oh, we have to do this is I'll just keep doing it myself. It's so much easier if I just keep doing this myself, and it's so much faster and I can get it done faster. But in the long term, that's not true. In the short term, yes, of course, you're going to have to carve out time to onboard this person eventually and to go through the search process to even find and identify the right person. But it's a must for the long term and your sanity.
Yeah, exactly. And I should say too, that what we're going to talk about is applicable whether you are hiring someone to be on staff full-time, awesome, or whether you are on staff part-time, or whether you are hiring someone to do maybe some hourly freelance work for you. Both of these are applicable. So just bear that in mind as we go through it. I think the first thing that I want to say is actually it's just to take a stand and say that those one-click application options on like Indeed or any of those, the worst thing that has happened to both job seekers and people looking to fill positions, the absolute hands down worst thing that has happened to all of us. I mean, we get such cruddy candidates through that one click, because it's so easy now for people just to be like, all right, whatever, I'll apply for that one. I'll apply for that one, which means that if you're a job seeker, you're trying to make your resume stand out amongst a whole bunch of useless, totally not the right people for that role. It's completely unqualified people for that role. And then on the other side, on the job filler side, the employer side, you get a massive amount of applications to try to weed through it. Down with the one-click apply. So sure, it seemed like a great idea, but it's awful.
Well, anything easy is going to inevitably come with a price. And this price for you, if you decide to use it, which we will recommend that you do not use it and you do not accept any that come through a one-click apply. And we'll talk about what we recommend instead. But it's going to take so much time to even read through a resume or cover letter and everything that they're sending through to just weed out hundreds and hundreds of people that it's not worth your time. It's absolutely not worth your time, because the vast majority, to Nikki's point, aren't going to be qualified, aren't going to be the type of people that you're looking for. And if you're looking for a quality person to fill this role, which of course you are, anyone who's just clicking an easy apply and not doing anything else to even learn about you, your business, the role, what is actually required, what you're looking for, that's not the type of person you want to work with. It's a very passive and, dare I say, lazy way to apply for a job. And that's not the type of candidate that you're looking for.
Yeah. Oh, dare say it, lazy.
Dare.
Yes. I think that some people don't realize that they can, in the job application, they can say, do not use one click or easy apply or any of that. Do not apply through this site. You can absolutely say that. And in fact, I would say that you should say that. Say, do not apply through the site, use this email address to apply. Because, and we'll talk about tests. We'll talk a little bit more about tests in, I don't know, probably 30 seconds as soon as I finish making the statement. But that's the first thing that, a first little test that you're going to put in there. If they don't read that and they don't follow that direction, you don't want them anyway, right? If they didn't actually read all the way through the job application, if they can't follow the very simple direction of do not apply here, apply at this email address, and they click that one click, then guess what? Good news. You don't have to look at any of those people that applied for the one click. You were saving yourself a massive amount of time, and Indeed or whatever is going to be like, another person applied. You don't have to look because you already told them not to apply that way, only to apply to a certain email address.
Yeah. And the other thing that we like to put in this kind of job description when we're putting it on LinkedIn, Indeed, and again, all of these platforms are useful for getting the word out there that this job is open. Certainly post on your own personal LinkedIn, business, Facebook pages, anywhere you can think. But within that write-up, in addition to what you're looking for, have the instructions of, again, a couple of other mini tests that you want them to do. One of the ones that we like to do is to put something to say, hey, in your email, include this in the subject line. And so generally it's a word or two words, maybe, like tambourine or green smoothie, whatever it is. It can be something ridiculous. It doesn't have to be relevant, but the key is, again, that they've read through the entire job description and they've read through the instructions, not only read through it, but then they are following the instructions, which is key because, again, no matter what role you're hiring for, you want someone that can follow basic instructions. And you'd be shocked at how many people cannot do that and won't do that or don't take the effort to do that. And again, that's not the type of person you're looking for.
Exactly. And when you have them put it in the subject line, then when you get to that inbox, you go through and all the ones that don't have it in the subject line, you mark it and you delete it. Because you don't know, and we'll talk about the auto. I keep saying we'll talk about something in a second. We're going to cover it all. But you go in and you just delete them. Another test that a friend of mine, full credit to Daniela, who is also a business owner, she likes to put this one in hers. And she was telling me about it. She said, oh, here's the test that I put in. I always ask them to go in and in their application, tell me what their MBTI type is. And I went, what's an MBTI type? And she said, exactly. I want them to go out, look it up. Then it's what it is. It's a different way of saying Myers-Briggs, right? It's the Myers-Briggs test or the 16 personalities, whatever, however you want to, or 16 personalities of the website, but a website. But she's like, not only am I getting them to give me their type, which is really just more a test than anything else, get them to follow a direction, but also it shows me that they went out and they took the time to Google this to find out the answer on their own. And I thought that was a great little thing. And the thing is, there are all kinds of other things like that we could put in there that require people to do a little extra research, to not write to us and say, what's an MBTI or whatever, because you want the kinds of people who are going to proactively do the research before coming to you. Once they're on your team, you want them to do the research before coming to you with every single question. That's what you're looking for. So by putting a test like that in the application, you again start to weed out the kind of people who are going to come to you with every single question and expect you to come up with all of the solutions for them. One thing I did want to say, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, great, now I don't have to look at all Indeed, or I don't have to look at, I can't even think of other, LinkedIn or whatever. I don't have to look at those, but then isn't my inbox going to be flooded and I'm going to have to respond to each of these people individually? No. We recommend setting up a separate email address just for job applications or role applications. So maybe it's jobs at whatever your company is, or hiring at whatever your
careers
company is. Careers, you decide, doesn't matter. But you want one dedicated email address just for that. And you want to set up an autoresponder that goes out every single time someone sends or at least the first time someone sends an email to that address. And what that autoresponder can say is something along the lines of, thank you so much for applying. Unfortunately, due to the volume of applicants, we'll only be able to reach out to people who may be a fit for this position. If that is not you, thank you again for applying and best of luck in the future. Something generic like that, friendly and positive, but something generic like that. So you can leave up that autoresponder all the time, no matter what role you're looking for. And you can then also not feel bad about deleting the people who didn't follow your directions, right? Because they know you're only going to reach out to them if they are people who follow the directions and who you might be moving forward with. I would recommend only setting it up so that they get it the first time that they email, which is usually a setting that you can set on email. So that if someone sends back a follow-up, you do want to see that, because people who take the time to follow up they set themselves ahead of the rest. But do set up that autoresponder, set up a separate email box. It makes life so much easier than to have all of that clogging your inbox or your company inbox or any of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm. And even within that inbox, if you're hiring for multiple positions at the same time, obviously the subject lines recommend different words, so you can kind of easily distinguish this is for this role, this is for this role. But then you can also set up a rule within that if you wanted to have those go to different folders. So this is for our social media manager role, this is for our customer service role, whatever it is that you're kind of hiring, if it's happening simultaneously. So it's even more organized for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely different test words in those subject lines. And then too, if this is not an inbox that you want to be checking daily, you can always have an alert sent through when you get, or if you think it's something you're not going to be getting through regularly, if you're not hiring at that moment, but you still want to allow people to email you, you can have an alert sent to you when you get when you got an email in that inbox. Just bear that in mind if you don't want to be checking it every single day. So you have gone from having thousands of potential applicants down to, I think you'll probably be surprised by how much having these tasks really whittles down that group. And I do want to say too, sometimes it may be tempting to look at the ones who got like two of it, like, so close. Yeah, so close. Like, they put pink fuzzy dice in the subject line, but they didn't give me their Myers-Briggs listing, or they got, they got the subject line wrong, but I was curious, so I looked in and I really like their experience. Like, our strong advice is to not let these people go on to if they missed any of the directions, they're not the people that you're looking for. And I know that it can be like, but their experience is so good. But if they didn't take the time to read all the way through this position, either they're not great with detail, they're not thorough, or they don't actually want it enough, right? Even if they
don't care enough.
Yeah. Exactly. And even if they have great experience, if they don't care enough, they're not the right candidate for you. So it can be very tempting to be like, maybe I'll just pass them along to the next level anyway. We would very strongly recommend that you set up these tests and you stick with it. If and Caitlin, our operations manager, has in the past, when someone has come really close and maybe gotten two of the three tests, she will sometimes respond and say, hey, you're not going to move forward to the next round for this reason. So just a friendly reminder to be sure to read the entire job description, to follow the directions, which is very kind of her, very sweet. But she also has never gotten anyone that's responded to her to thank her for that. And you would think if that's an A player, an A player would get that and say, oh, thank you so much. Sorry I missed this opportunity, but best of luck to you. It's I don't want to say it's indicative. Well, but it is. You need an A player, and an A player cares enough about this role that they would read through everything in that job description and they would give you everything you're looking for. And if they don't do it, they're not an A player.
Mm-hmm. So you whittle down the pool. It is now a handful, maybe 2 handfuls if you're lucky, depending again how long you've let the job description linger out in the LinkedIns and the Indeed and Monsters of the world. But at this point, we'd recommend you do a phone screen. And so typically what we do is, Caitlin, actually, our operations manager, does a lot of these because we've been hiring for a lot of roles like marketing assistant or customer service or whatnot. And so obviously, ideal scenario, someone else is doing the phone screens for you. But if it is just you, the other option is to have them send through a Loom video so that you don't actually have to get on a Zoom call or a phone call with your potential candidates. Yes, do you get some interaction, but you can save that for the next round of interviews. At this point, you want to whittle it down even further. You want to save yourself as much time as possible upfront so that you can focus your time on the 1 or 2 candidates that you want to move forward in the final round with. Some of the questions that we ask people to talk about on the Loom video and answer is to really give us a background about them, about who they are, about their previous experience, describing their ideal position to us. What types of projects are they working on and have they worked on in the past? What are their favorite types of projects to work on? What do they want to work on in the future? And quite transparently, I dug out of our Google Drive one of our lists of questions for a marketing assistant role we were screening for. And so a lot of them are very much that generic, tell us about yourself, ideal role, what drew you to this position, what excites you about this role. And you want to understand why your company, why are they interested in your company and working with you versus for someone else? What do they want in a role so that you can start to see, is this role actually going to give them what they're looking for in a role? Are they going to be a good fit, both culturally and skill set wise? Do they have the skill set that you need and are looking for? And so getting them to describe in their own words what the work that they've been doing, work that they want to do, you can start to see and feel out if this is going to be a good fit.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's this, I know some people might be thinking, well, they applied. Can it just go right to like a call with me, the interview? It'll be so much faster. No, first, I mean, yes, could you, of course, but the reason we don't is number one, there are a lot of people who look good on paper. And then when you actually interact with them, they're not so good, or it's just clear that they're not right for that role, or they're not, it's just, maybe somebody helped them with their resume, or maybe they copied somebody else's resume, or maybe they put stuff down on paper. And then when you actually talk to them, I mean, this has happened to me before, years ago when I was looking for someone to help with, what was I looking for? I don't know. But the point was I was looking for help with someone in a position that was not marketing. And she was a very nice young woman. But as we started to talk, and her resume was good, it was exactly, I think maybe it was operations or something. And her resume looked good for the position. And as we started talking, the more that she started talking to me, the more it was clear that what she actually wanted to do, as she would describe the kinds of projects she liked to do, was marketing, which was not at all the role that we were on the phone for. And if I'd had someone on the team to do a screener, they would have caught that. Or if I'd had her submit a video in advance, that would have caught that. And I wouldn't have wasted my time. Very nice young woman, but not right for the role. And also it was a waste of my time. So what we're looking to do is to preserve your time as the business owner, and make sure that the only people that you end up talking about in 2 more steps are the best possible candidates, and you'll be choosing from among those candidates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the other questions that we asked too, in case it's helpful for anyone, but especially if you are in a remote work environment, a lot of our questions center around that. So do you have remote work experience? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it? How do you best work? Do you like having autonomy to get things done? Do you like more collaboration and guidance? Folks I know on our team, we love collaborating, but it's a very different collaboration process when you're remote and you have to be proactive to reach out and say, hey, can you hop on a Zoom call for 30 minutes or whatever it is? It's not organically happening as in an office. And you can start to kind of suss out whether the type of personality, the person's personality is more maybe fit for an in-person role versus a remote role, or that they might not even like remote work. And you can kind of start to feel that out. But some other, would you describe your communication style? How do you keep yourself organized? Describe your favorite boss, manager, professor if they're coming out of college, and then your least favorite. Why was that? And you can start to kind of see how they like to work with others and what they respond to, what they don't respond to. What would your current and previous supervisor tell me about you in one sentence? Asking them what location they are. If time zones do make a difference to you, making sure you know where they're working from. If they don't, then great. But also knowing for meetings, are they available during the hours that you'll want to maybe set up meeting times? Are there set work hours that you're looking for? We also asked, what's one thing you're hoping to learn from this role? What's your favorite book or podcast? Which I find fascinating because often you'll see people who aren't continuing to learn and don't actually listen to podcasts or read any sort of books. And then that kind of feels like, okay, if you don't consume that, is there anything you're doing to continue learning and grow in whatever position it is that you're working in? Mm-hmm. This one I love. Tell me what you know about our company. So getting them in their own words to describe back to you what they've learned. You can tell very quickly, obviously, people who have researched you, even just a little bit, they might get some details wrong. Obviously, you're not expecting them to know everything about your company. That's impossible. But you would have the expectation, we would recommend having the expectation that they've spent at least 15, 20 minutes before getting on, either making the Loom or getting on a call with you and someone from your team, to have a baseline understanding of who you serve, what you're offering, what your service or product is, and to have a little bit of understanding about that. And then if you're doing not doing a Loom and you're doing a Zoom/phone call, giving them a chance to ask you questions as well. I think it's always telling when people are like, nope, I have no questions. It's a little disconcerting. How can you not have questions about this role and what you're going to do? And you'd expect them to come at least with one or two questions prepared to, maybe it's curiosity about, hey, I have this idea for your brand. That's like real A player. If they come with ideas for your business already, that's definitely a green flag, if you will, versus, someone who just, how much time off do I get? That might be a little bit of a red flag in the first screening to ask questions like that. So things to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And obviously you don't have to use all of these questions by any means.
Yeah. We don't use all of them in any of our interviews too. And obviously, for the marketing assistant position too, some of the questions we asked were like, what's your favorite social media platform and why? And if they struggled to come up with a social media platform, it was kind of like, okay, I understand that not everyone's on it personally, but to have an understanding professionally in a role where you're going to be on social media in some capacity or another, questions like that are tailored to the role that can also, though, just kind of give you a sense of the person's thinking and how they approach things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I would say probably aim for your call to last 15, 20 minutes. This shouldn't be a big time investment. And then same thing, the Loom, if you're asking them to record a video, don't make them be on a video, give them like 3 or 4 questions to ask. You're just looking to answer. You're just looking to get a sense of them as a person. Now, the next step is not to just go into a call with you, because here's the thing. People can look good on paper. They can look good on camera, sound good. I shouldn't say it has nothing to do with looks, obviously. And maybe you want to make that extra clear. But
they can present themselves as professionals
yes, exactly. But it's really easy to write down that you know how to do something, to say that you know how to do something really well, but you need to also have them prove it. You're looking to see what the quality of their work is. The worst scenario is to hire someone, to bring someone on, to onboard them, go through all of that, to have them sit down and start to do work. And you realize that they actually have no idea what they're doing, or their skill level is much lower than what they said that it was. I think
or they need more handholding than you can provide them.
Exactly. Or that you want to provide them with. Absolutely. Yeah. So for that reason, our next step is a test. It is not a long test, and it is a test that is geared toward whatever role they will be fulfilling. We look for activities, tasks that will take anywhere from a half hour to an hour, no more than that. You can't expect to take over these people's days just because they're interested in working for you. But look for a task or two, if you can fit that into an hour, that is applicable to what they're doing. So for the marketing assistant role, I think at that point we were looking to do more pitching to other podcasts. And one of the questions was, list 5 podcasts that we could pitch Nikki or Kate to, and why those would be good podcasts to get them on. So you can get a sense of their research. You can get a sense of their strategy. For our operations manager, I think we might have actually duplicated one of our drives.
I think we asked them if we had, how would you organize our Google Drive? And I remember specifically actually that Caitlin came, our operations manager, why we hired her. She came with an answer, but what I loved beyond that, and I love when copywriters do this too with some of their copy work, but explaining questions, asking additional questions to say, I don't have this information about your business yet. So here are additional questions that I'd want answers to before I made a final decision on how I would organize your Google Drive, or with a copywriter, additional information I'd need to know. Here's the copy I recommend just with this baseline information, but with additional information, I might change this headline. Here's why. I might change this call to action based on where it's directing to, that sort of thing. When people provide insight into their thought process, it's beautiful.
Yes, exactly. Well, so as you're giving them the directions for this task, give them enough directions that they can complete it, certainly, but don't over-explain, because you want to give them that room to come back with those questions, because it is truly the A players who come back with the questions, who say, based on what you gave me, this is what I would do, but I'd also want to know X, Y, Z. Or sometimes they will even say, when you send them the test, they say, great, I have some additional questions. Can I send those along? Either way, fantastic. We love that. Now, here is another point. Pay people for this test. Don't ask them to do all this work for free. It used to be okay-ish, if it was ever really okay, to ask people to do tests for free, potentially very, very small tests. But you know what? You are not that kind of business owner, right? You're not looking for free work. And quite frankly, too, if there's any chance at all that you could use anything that any of these candidates give you, you are morally obligated to pay them. But even if you're not going to use any of this stuff, whatever, pay them. It's worth it. It says something very positive about your business and about the way that you treat your teams. And again, you're looking for tests that are going to take maybe like half hour to an hour. And you're only going to be giving this to the cream of the crop of the people who passed your phone screening. So you're probably looking at maximum 2, 3, even like maximum 5, 6. Let's say 5, 6, because you're going to narrow it down from here, certainly. But maximum 5 or 6 people. And depending on how much you're paying them, maybe like high end, you're probably looking at $50 an hour. So, okay, could it cost you a couple $100 to maximum, right? Maybe it's $25, and my point is that it's a small investment to help ensure that you get the best possible candidates, right? These people's time is valuable just as much as your time is valuable. And it shows a lot about the values of your company when you do indeed pay them. So pay them.
Yeah, especially because you don't want to lose your best candidates just because you were asking them to do free work, which is very much a possibility that people might say, well, I don't have time for this to do unpaid work. And so it reflects, to Nikki's point, reflects well on you, but then also it shows those candidates that you value them and makes them more invested in wanting this role to say, okay, that's a company I want to work for.
Exactly. So then when you get those tests back, you do want to, first of all, pay them right away. The email address, you can just pay them via PayPal, right? And, maybe you say, all right, we're going to pay you for, $50 to do this test, or $25 or 20 or whatever is commensurate with how much you were planning on paying for this role, right? If it were going to be just the hourly rate for whatever that role would be. So then pay them, of course, right away. And then find out how long it took them. And you can make that part of it. When you send the test, be sure to send us back how long it took you to do this work, because that can be something to factor in as well. Especially if you don't tell them in advance, this will take you an hour, or I expect that this will take you an hour, because you'll get things back from people and, you're paying them the rate, whatever you're paying them, but you'll get things back and someone will say, well, this took me, 3 hours to do it. And you'll get something back and say, well, this took me a half hour to do it. Now you will know based on the project itself, what is more reasonable, because it can be that we definitely have had applicants who spend way too much time on something. And part of that, you can kind of, in a way, are they trying to do their very best, but at the same time too, like, whoa, way too much time on this. But also you'll get candidates who kind of blow through something a lot faster than they should have, that they should have taken more time with it. So you do want to know how time is not a perfect indicator by any means, but it should be something that you factor in. You can't just look at quality. You also want to look at time, because you can't bring on someone who does amazing work, but it also takes them 4 times as long as anybody else would to do that. You need to bring on someone who does amazing work, but also does it in a reasonable time frame. And this is another great way, number one, to test whether or not they're able to do what they said they can do and at what level, but also to make sure that they can do it in a reasonable time. So at that point, then you have some really, really good quality data to look at. And again, this is another opportunity to whittle it down. You should be getting down now after the test down to, again, maximum 2 or 3 people, because the next step is when you actually talk to them, when you interview them.
And so when you get on the call with them, at this point, you already know about them. You understand what kind of understanding they have about your company. You have tested them. You know they can do what they say it is that they can do. So at this point, what we like to do is ask a lot of more situational based questions. So for example, tell me about your time that you failed. How did you handle it? Or you're in a meeting and entirely disagree with everyone else. What do you do? So more open-ended questions that allow you to see this candidate's thinking. Do they have examples that they can pinpoint? And what is their thought process? How would they handle themselves within your company? Do they have a way of, especially, a time that you failed? Are they amenable to talking about a time that they maybe screwed up? And did they own up into it? Did they apologize for the mistake and then fix it? How did they handle that? Because of course you don't want someone who just says, no, I never fail, or I failed, but it wasn't my fault, and puts the blame elsewhere. You want someone that takes ownership for what it is that they do, their work, and then is open to learning, growing, fixing the mistake, not just saying, okay, next time I won't, next time I knew for next time that I couldn't do it this way, but says, okay, I knew I learned for next time, but I also went back and fixed whatever it was. And so, of course, you can also ask questions tailored to the specific role. So, for example, the marketing assistant role that we were interviewing for, we had asked them to give some examples of podcasts that Nikki could be on for our other brand, Filthy Rich Writer. And one of the podcasts that a lot of candidates recommended was a direct competitor of Filthy Rich Writer in that brand. They also offered a copywriting training program. And so one of the questions we asked our final candidates was, why is this a good choice? Why or why not? Might they not know what that podcast is? Sure. But then I would expect them to ask, hey, I haven't actually heard about that podcast. And for me to then provide them that information and to see if they made that connection to say, oh, they're a competitor. Okay, we don't want to put Nikki on a competitor's podcast, to make sure they had that baseline understanding of marketing and not wanting to put Nikki on a show that just didn't make sense for our audience, / would get rejected immediately by that brand if they had any sense, of course. But we would look silly for pitching them if we did so.
Yeah. Yeah. I love situational questions because you really get at how they would truly react. Like there's no way to prepare for situational questions, right? Like, well, what would you do in this scenario? It's not like they can do a ton of research and come in. It's truly, and the more that you can make it something that would actually happen in their position, the better. And in fact, you can think about things that have happened in your company, maybe things where people have dropped the ball. There was, the wrong link went out in an email. And so how would they deal with that, and how would they make sure that didn't happen going forward? But okay, you sent out an email that had the wrong link in it. What are the first things that you would do? And just leave it at that, because you want to know immediately. I would let the team know that I made this mistake. I would queue up a second email, and to make sure that if it was a link that was very important, to queue up a second email and make sure that the team agreed on it. I would make sure I would put these processes in the place so that couldn't happen again, that kind of thing. So you can look at places, certainly places where people have dropped the ball in the past, or where people have done the exact right thing in the past. Mm-hmm. But those situational questions really give you insight into how people truly act when things happen in the moment. Because so much of businesses happen in the moment, right? Like, oh, that I sent out the wrong link. What do they actually do then? Not what would they do when they have time to think about it, but what would they actually do in that moment, or all kinds of great. And again, you want to base that on what that role is actually doing. But I know that sometimes if you think, well, I asked all the basic interview questions or all the basic interview questions were asked in the screening round. They tell me about yourself. And those are great, but that's the reason we keep them in the screening round, because those are basic level questions. In this interview, this is a time to really dig in and find out who this person would be once they're on your team, what it would be like to work with them on a daily basis, how much you can rely on them. Because you want to know that as much as possible before you decide to bring them on. Okay, so I know we threw a lot at you, and we haven't even gotten into what comes after the final interview and all that kind of stuff. But that's a whole other series of podcasts, certainly. But what we're hoping to give you today is some steps that you can follow to help you fill roles, or at least begin filling roles, and not deal with the thousands of unqualified people, and not lose yourself in the confusion of trying to fill a role. Because it's when you follow this process, filling a role with the right person is so much easier than without it. And it is also so crucial that you take all of these steps, because all of these are what help weed out the people who are not the ones who are meant to be on your team. Your business and you deserve A players. So you need to make sure that you're only bringing on A players, and this process helps ensure that. So a lot of stuff. You might want to grab your pen, go back, start at the beginning, maybe make some notes. But this should certainly help with your interview process. And so with that, we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Do you want to learn how to sell and scale your offer on autopilot every single day without the chaos of live launching or the low conversions of Evergreen? Who doesn't, right? Get our free on-demand video training at circuitsalessystem.com/free. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you never miss a video. We'll catch you next time.